that we work so hard to do. But it's just a certain division that needs to be brought to everyone's attention and understanding that, no, this is something that's been going on. And it's just getting to a point where it's like, all right, now enough is enough. I think that's
enough is enough, man. Enough is enough, man. Yeah. Yeah, enough is enough.
The larger conversation that needs to be had that is really above us. And I think that is the part that we really need to get to. So hopefully at All-Star, we can have an opportunity and a conversation because at this time, we something needs to change.
At All-Star, they want to have an opportunity and a conversation. That's what I was alluding to in the beginning. They're going to walk into Caitlin Clark's room.
We can sit back and we can watch what's happening to Caitlin Clark. And they know how they're treating her, why they're treating her that way.
She became a roadshow. And I don't know that, and I don't want to slight anybody in college, but I don't remember saying that in my time. And that's held true.
There is a version of this story where two women who have every reason to avoid each other end up on the same sideline, wearing the same colors, cheered on by the same crowd. That is exactly what is happening this weekend in Chicago, and almost nobody expected it. For 2 years, the relationship between Caitlin Clark and Cheryl Reeve has been one of the quiet undercurrents running through the 1BA. Not a headline scandal, not a locker room blow-up, something colder and more interesting than that. A pattern of small frictions that kept resurfacing at exactly the moments when the basketball world was watching closest. It started back in 2024, before Clark had even played a professional minute. Her first preseason game aired for free on the league's app, a decision meant to capture the wave of attention following her out of college. On the very same night, a preseason game involving Reeve's Minnesota Lynx wasn't broadcast at all. Reeve didn't let it slide quietly. She posted her frustration publicly, attaching a pointed hashtag that read, "The W is more than one player." The post didn't stay up for long. She deleted it. But by then, plenty of people had already seen it, and the message underneath the message was hard to miss. A veteran coach signaling that the league's newest star was getting a spotlight the rest of the roster hadn't earned the same way. Then came the moment that turned a passing comment into a real storyline. Later that year, the roster for the 2024 U.S. Olympic team was announced, and Clark's name wasn't on it. The decision sparked national debate. Sports talk shows built entire segments around it, and the timing made it impossible to ignore who was coaching that Olympic team. Cheryl Reeve. Reeve wasn't officially on the committee that built the roster, but a member of that selection committee later admitted, in a quote that quietly confirmed what everyone suspected, that Reeve's read on the team dynamics carried weight in the room. The team went on to win gold. Clark stayed home, and the question of how much influence Reeve actually had never fully went away. So when the 2025 All-Star Game rolled around and Clark was named a team captain for the first time, basketball fans immediately started paying attention to the draft process. Because for one night, Clark had the power to decide who coached her. She used it. During that draft, Clark traded Reeve away from her own team, sending her to Nafisa Collier's roster in exchange for coach Sandy Brondello. On paper, it read as a basketball decision, reuniting Reeve with her own star player Collier. But it also did something else. It kept Clark and Reeve apart for another year, at a moment when the whole league was watching to see whether they'd be forced to work together. That's the backdrop heading into this year. And this year, something changed. The 2026 1BA All-Star Game moved to Chicago, the league's biggest markets, and with it came a new format. Instead of the top vote-getters serving as captains who draft their own rosters, the league brought in two legends of the sport, Cynthia Cooper and Teresa Weatherspoon, and handed them the job of honorary general managers. It was Cooper and Weatherspoon who would build the two rosters from scratch, and it was Cooper and Weatherspoon who would decide, indirectly, who ended up coaching each side. The head coaching jobs went to the two teams with the best records after games played through July 10th, regardless of conference. A rule that, this year, worked out to put Becky Hammon of the Las Vegas Aces on one bench and Cheryl Reeve of the Minnesota Lynx on the other. Fan voting had already set part of the roster in motion. Paige Buchers led the way with just over 1 million votes. Right behind her sat Clark, with a little over 1 million of her own. a margin thin enough that either one of them could have plausibly finished first. Aja Wilson, the reigning MVP and a 4-time league MVP overall, was locked in as a starter almost from the moment voting closed, alongside Olivia Miles, the presumptive Rookie of the Year, having a breakout season with a red-hot Lynx team sitting at 15-4 without their own injured star, Nafisa Collier. When it came time for Weatherspoon to build her roster, her very first move set the tone for the entire draft. She selected Aja Wilson. Then Clark landed on that same roster too, placed there by the voting and draft process, meaning that for the first time since that awkward 2024 preseason broadcast snub, Cheryl Reeve was going to be standing on Caitlin Clark's own sideline, coaching her, not against her, not around her, but directly for her, in the exact building where every basketball reporter in the country would be watching for any sign of tension between them. And this time, Clark didn't have the power to trade her way out of it. What makes this especially interesting is what Clark said just weeks before the draft even happened. Asked about the process, she made a simple, public request. She wanted to stay together with two of her Indiana Fever teammates, Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, both of whom had also been voted in as starters. "Whoever is drafting, if you want to keep us on the same side, we'd appreciate that," she told reporters. It read as a small, reasonable ask from a player who'd spent an entire season building chemistry with two specific teammates and simply wanted to bring that chemistry into an exhibition game. It didn't work out that way. When the rosters were finalized, Boston ended up on Weatherspoon's squad with Clark, but Mitchell was drafted onto the opposing roster, Team Cooper, alongside Paige Buchers, Brianna Stewart, and Angel Reese. Clark got half her wish, not the full one. And once again, the player with arguably the most fan-driven star power in the league found herself with less control over her own environment than the size of her fan base might suggest. Now zoom out to the roster itself, because the two teams that Cooper and Weatherspoon built ended up looking dramatically different in one specific way. And it's the kind of detail that a lot of casual fans will miss, but that changes how the game is likely to actually play out on the court. Team Cooper, Bucher's squad, is made up of players from 12 different teams. 12 players, 12 different franchises, meaning not a single pair of teammates who've spent the season building on-court chemistry together. Team Weatherspoon, Clark's squad, is the opposite. It has 3 separate pairs of players who already play together every night during the regular season, meaning real, practiced chemistry, actual instinct for where a teammate is going to be without having to think about it. Clark and forward Natasha Howard have run pick and rolls together for years. Guard Ryan Howard and forward Alicia Gray, both from the same Atlanta Dream roster, know each other's tendencies cold. It's a small structural advantage, the kind that rarely gets talked about before an exhibition game, but the kind that can absolutely show up on the scoreboard when the game actually gets competitive down the stretch. Then there's the health picture, because All-Star Weekend rarely arrives with every single selected player fully healthy, and this year is no exception. Aja Wilson missed a Commissioner's Cup final earlier this month with a right leg injury, even as she's in the middle of arguably her best statistical season yet, averaging close to double-digit rebounds, nearly 3 assists, and a league-best 2 blocks a game while shooting over 52% from the field. This is shaping up to be a season where she makes a real case for a 5th MVP award, and it would mark her 8th career All-Star selection. Kelsey Plum, on the other roster, is dealing with a lower leg injury of her own and is not expected to be re-evaluated until late July, which puts her availability for the actual game in real question, even though she earned her spot with career-best numbers in both scoring and assists. Put all of that together, and what you actually have this weekend isn't just another mid-season exhibition game. It's the collision of 3 separate storylines that have been building for 2 full years. There's the unresolved tension between a superstar guard and a coach who once left her off an Olympic roster and once got publicly traded away by that same guard the very next chance she got. There's a league experimenting with a brand new format, handing control to 2 legends of the sport instead of the players themselves, and watching that new system produce exactly the pairing that the old system had twice managed to avoid. And there's a roster built almost by accident around chemistry, stacking a group of players who already know each other's game against a scattered collection of talented individuals who've never shared a court together. To understand why this year's format matters so much, it helps to know how the league used to do this. For years, the top 2 vote-getters were named captains and literally drafted their own teammates, schoolyard style, live in front of cameras. It made for good television, but it also meant the biggest stars had outsized control over who they'd be playing alongside and who would be coaching them. That's exactly the system Clark used in 2025 to move Reeve off her bench. This year, the league scrapped that model entirely. Instead of 2 players drafting, 2 decorated veterans of the sport's earlier era were brought in as honorary general managers, given full authority over both rosters. Cynthia Cooper won 4 championships and 4 finals MVPs in the league's first years of existence, back when the 1BA was still proving it could survive as a business. Teresa Weatherspoon is remembered for one of the most replayed shots in league history, a full-court buzzer beater that still gets pulled up every time the conversation turns to the greatest 1BA moments ever captured on camera. Handing the roster-building power to 2 people with that kind of standing in the sport was the league's way of removing the popularity contest from the equation, at least partly, and letting basketball logic drive who ends up next to whom. It's worth sitting with how differently the voting actually broke down this year, because the numbers tell their own story. In the first release of fan vote totals back in June, it was Indiana's Aaliyah Boston sitting in the top spot, not Clark, with Clark trailing her own teammate by double-digit thousands of votes. By the time final voting closed, the picture had shifted again, with Buchers edging out Clark by fewer than 30,000 votes out of over 1 million cast for each of them. A margin so thin, it barely registers as a gap at all. Media voting told a slightly different story than the fans did, and player voting told a different story still, with Clark landing all the way down at 11th among her peers despite topping 1 million fan votes. That gap between how the fans see a player and how the players in the league see that same player has become its own quiet subplot every single year Clark has been in the league, and this year was no exception. Then there's Paige Buchers, who's having the kind of rookie transition that doesn't happen often. She won last year's Rookie of the Year award, the same honor Clark won the year before her. And this year she topped all players in fan voting outright, more than 1 million votes, ahead of Clark, ahead of Wilson, ahead of everyone. She's the centerpiece of Team Cooper, tasked with anchoring a roster built from 12 completely different franchises, a group of all-stars who have essentially never shared a possession together in their professional careers. Whatever chemistry that team finds, it'll have to be built in the span of a single practice, if there's even a real practice at all before tip-off. On the other side, Wilson's placement as Weatherspoon's very first pick says something about where she currently sits in the sports hierarchy. This will be her 8th All-Star selection, a streak that traces back to her rookie season in 2018, and it'll be her 3rd time carrying the captain tier designation since the league introduced that honor. She's doing all of this while nursing a leg injury serious enough to have already cost her 1 game this month, in a season where her per-game numbers, 9.5 rebounds, closing in on 3 assists, a league-leading 2 blocks, put her squarely in the conversation for a 5th career MVP trophy. Depending on how the leg responds over the next few days, All-Star Weekend could end up being more of a showcase appearance than a full, competitive 60-minute effort from her. The kind of situation where a superstar suits up for the moment, the photos, the crowd, without necessarily playing through the same intensity she'd bring to a real regular season game. Kelsey Plum's situation adds another layer of uncertainty to Team Cooper's side. She earned her 5th career All-Star nod on the back of a career year, the best scoring and playmaking averages of her entire professional run, and she's previously walked away from an All-Star game with an MVP trophy of her own. Back in a year when the award was so small it became a running joke around the league until they upgraded it. But a lower leg injury has her sidelined for now, with a re-evaluation not expected until late July, right around the time the game itself tips off. Whether she plays, sits in uniform, or misses the weekend entirely was still an open question as of the most recent reporting. Zoom back out to the 2 coaches for a second, because their situation carries its own quiet irony. Becky Hammon, now head coach of the Las Vegas Aces, earned her spot on the sideline by posting one of the league's best records through the first half of the season. Cheryl Reeve earned hers the same way, guiding a Minnesota Lynx team to a 15-4 start that's outperformed almost every reasonable preseason expectation, especially considering the roster has done it while missing Nafisa Collier, arguably the team's best player, for a significant stretch. Reeve getting to coach in this game at all is a reward for one of the best coaching jobs in the league this season. That it comes paired with coaching the exact player she's had public and semi-public friction with for 2 straight years is either a strange coincidence of a merit-based selection system or the clearest possible signal that this new, less player-controlled format is working exactly as the league hoped, putting talent and performance ahead of personal history, whether the people involved are fully ready for that or not. Chicago hosted this exact event before, but never with this much history sitting underneath the surface. The Sky's home city gets the showcase for a second time, this time spread across 2 arenas, with the 3-point contest and skills challenge on Friday night at Wintrust Arena, and the main event Saturday at the United Center, the same building where the NBA's Chicago Bulls play. 22 of the best players in the league will walk out onto that court, but only a handful of people in that building will fully understand what it means that Cheryl Reeve is standing on Caitlin Clark's bench instead of across from it. Go back just 1 year, and you can see how much has actually shifted in 12 months. At last year's All-Star Game in Indianapolis, Clark was a captain in the old sense of the word, drafting her own roster, and she ended up with Aaliyah Boston, Sabrina Ionescu, Aja Wilson, and a mix of others under Sandy Brondello as her coach, the very coach she'd taken in that trade to keep Reeve away. On the opposite bench that night sat Reeve, coaching a team built around Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart, her own Lynx duo, alongside Paige Buchers, Angel Reese, and Kelsey Plum. The 2 coaches were separated by design. The 2 biggest storylines in the sport were kept on opposite sidelines for a second straight year, and almost nobody outside the league office seemed to be forcing the issue. This year there was no draft for Clark to manipulate, no trade to make, no lever left to pull. The league picked the format, the honorary general managers picked the rosters, and the results put Reeve directly in charge of the team Clark plays for, without either of them getting so much as a say in the matter. It's worth noting that this isn't a small technical footnote. It's the first time in the 2 years since the original broadcast dispute that the 2 of them will share a bench for an actual game, rather than standing across from each other, or, worse, existing in different arenas entirely. The setting itself adds its own layer of weight to the moment. Chicago is hosting the 1BA All-Star Game for the second time in the league's history, and this year's edition spans 2 full days and 2 different arenas across the city. Friday night belongs to the skills competitions, the 3-point contest, and the skills challenge, held at Wintrust Arena, home of the Chicago Sky, and broadcast nationally on ESPN. Saturday is the main event, the All-Star Game itself, shifting across town to the United Center, the arena better known as the home of the NBA's Chicago Bulls, giving the WNBA a rare chance to fill one of basketball's most storied buildings with its own spotlight for a single night. Fans without tickets yet can still find them, with seats remaining available right up through Fight Week, a sign of just how much demand this particular matchup has generated compared to past years. Whether that history actually shows up in how the game unfolds, whether it's visible in body language, in who gets minutes down the stretch, in whether Reeve leans on the established chemistry of her Atlanta and Fever pairings over isolating her captain, is exactly the kind of thing that only becomes clear once the ball actually goes up. An All-Star Game is usually remembered for highlight dunks and hero ball possessions in the final few minutes. This one might end up remembered for something quieter, whether 2 years of friction finally got put to rest, or whether it just got postponed for one more season. Either way, the 2 of them will be standing next to each other on Saturday, in front of a sold-out United Center, with cameras trained on both of them the entire time. For anyone keeping score at home heading into tip-off, here's exactly who's standing where. Team Weatherspoon, Reeve's squad, starts Caitlin Clark, Aya Wilson, Olivia Miles, Aaliyah Boston, and Jessica Shepard, backed by a bench of Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, Jonquel Jones, Courtney Williams, Kiki Iriafen, and Nneka Ogwumike. Team Cooper, Hammond's squad, starts Paige Buchers, Brianna Stewart, Natasha Howard, Gabby Williams, and Kelsey Mitchell. With reserves Angel Reese, Marina Mabry, Dominique Malanga, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, and Sonia Citron. 2 rosters, 22 players, 1 shared history nobody drafted for. After 2 years of trades, snubs, deleted posts, and near misses, Caitlin Clark and Cheryl Reeve are finally on the same side. What they do with that is the part nobody can predict yet.